which is Reverend Dr. Ruth Miller. And I always enjoy the most about Ruth the fact that she always gives me a different perspective on something I think I know a lot about. So I am really excited to hear Ruth's perspective on mothering and being a mom. And so I welcome Reverend Dr. Ruth Miller to give our message today, which is simply called Mother's Day.
Thank you, dear. Such a treat to be here with you all. Thank you so much for sharing your day with me. And I did hear a few responses to those sections in the wonderful readings that Ali chose, to those of us who didn't experience mothering quite the romantic, sympathetic description that most people have on such a day. I'm going to give you a little history because, well, I'm Ruth. And if you don't know this, Mother's Day was officially created in this country because Julia Ward Howe was angry that men got all the attention during the Civil War. She felt that all those women who were A, being bereft of their sons and their husbands, B, having to manage the whole scene without them, and C, dealing with the grieving that was going on, needed to be honored and respected. So she started campaigning, letter writing, and speaking to everybody she knew had any kind of power. All the presidents during the 60s and 70s of the 1800s, all the congressmen she could reach, everybody she could, to say, we need to be honoring the mothers. Well, when she passed on, the battle was picked up by a mother and daughter team in West Virginia. And the first official Mother's Day happened in West Virginia in 1914. Yeah. And it took another 4 years of letter writing and talking to everybody they could talk to for it to be made an official holiday in 1918. Whew. Well, what's really interesting is that mother-daughter team then disavowed Mother's Day in the 1920s because it had become so commercial. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. All it was supposed to be was one pink carnation to acknowledge the heartfelt experience of the mother. Whole different world, right? And it's interesting that it became May because in the Catholic and the pagan, quote pagan, the Wiccan and Celtic and all the other traditions of Europe, May is the month of the mother. May is the time when we recognize that that young maiden from February, from Imbolc, that midpoint between the solstice and the equinox, that first, 2nd February that we call Groundhog's Day, is the day of the bride, the day of the maiden. The day of Imbolc means in milk. The sheep's milk has come in, now we're no longer fasting, is really what it is. No longer from the winter fast. Now we're going to go into the spring fast that includes dairy and the fresh spring greens that begin to happen at Imbolc. Okay, then we get the spring equinox and Pesach and Passover and all of that stuff. And then we come to the midpoint, which is May Day, or Beltane in the Wiccan Celtic tradition, which is the point where the young bride is visibly a mother, or about to be. And so usually she's dressed in green and pregnant when she is honored in the weeks of the month of May. In case you wanted to know all of that. And recognizing that motherhood is unique to the mammalian species that carry the child within us. That way of carrying a being that we have never met, we know nothing about, and it is impinging on our bodies. And some of us get pretty resentful during those 9 months. How dare this thing be doing this to me? And some of us are going, oh, wow, what a wonderful experience. I love every moment of it. I love being aware of this. I love feeling that life force moving in my body. I actually did love being pregnant, every moment of it. I was blessed though, I had a waterbed. And I have to say, it made all the difference in the 8th and 9th month.
Wow.
So this idea of there is new life coming from no obvious source, happening and growing and developing in the body, is unique among the plants, animals, the many billions of species, to the mammals. That's one of the definitions of mammals. We carry our babies in our wombs. And they are born pretty immature. But what's really interesting, only primates, starting with bears, we're going to count bears as primates. All right, only those of us who bear babies, totally incapable beings, have a different kind of experience from all the other forms of mammals, where they're born pretty mature. You know, a colt can get up on its legs. A calf can almost immediately get up on its legs. I had the joy of watching a calf be born one time. And, you know, all these other critters that we watch be born or see in the zoo or whatever that are having their babies, they're able to get up and nurse almost immediately. Not humans. Definitely not bears. Has anyone seen a baby bear? Right? They're born in the den in the wintertime. And they're little tiny hairless beings. And they crawl around. Somehow they manage to find the nipples, having crawled out of the vagina. Wow. Wow. And so by the time spring comes, they begin to be about what we would call an 8 or 10 month old baby. And then they can begin to emerge from the den. So can you imagine a world with no TV, no radio, no movies, no internet, and no one except other voices of other people and your own inner awareness providing you with information about your experience? In that world, can you imagine being aware that a life is being born through this being over here? A new life is being born. It's pretty magical. It's pretty miraculous. Especially since often the woman would go off and find a sacred place that she had been meditating in and singing in for months, and crouch down, and in a few minutes, not hours or days, deliver this new life. And then a few hours later, maybe even minutes later, be up, walking around, and doing whatever she was doing before. It's a whole different way of being now. How miraculous, how magical. Someone can bring a new person onto this planet. And then that person can't survive without the being that gave birth, because of the need to nurse and be held constantly. So we wrap that infant in the same clothing that we have worn for ages, and we wrap them up inside with us as we go about our business. And that is seen over and over. And a young mind seeing that for the first time, and then seeing it happen maybe 5 or 6 or 10 more times in a lifetime, because, well, population control is part of indigenous life, folks. Can you imagine that? Because that magic, that miracle, made the feminine body become worshipful, something to worship. It can do this. Okay? Birds lay eggs. Life comes from eggs. Right? But human beings have a child and carry it and nourish it and nurture it for months and years before it can function in the world. Now, in indigenous cultures, we're looking at 10 to 12 years, usually 12, 13, right in there is the point of maturity. For a girl, it's menses. For a guy, his voice changed. And during that stage in life, people are given opportunities to connect with other people in various new ways. But up to that point, everyone is being nourished and supplied primarily by the nursers, those who nurse, and secondarily by those people's mothers, what we call grandmothers. Have you ever thought about that word, grandmother? Yeah. We're talking about the mother that has the grandeur, that is holding the well-being of everybody. We sometimes use the word matriarch, arch-mother. Oh, grandmother, matriarch. That's all it is. It's the one who is aware, who has been through the process, who can help people through the process, both of birthing and of growing up, and of entering into maturity, and of giving birth, right? All of that. The grandmother has this wisdom. And the grandmother may go out and harvest or gather or whatever periodically, but is mostly available to the young ones. In the village gardening cultures and the hunting-gathering cultures of the world that were normal prior to 6,000 years ago, and I won't go there today. In the meantime, though, we have this concept of it takes a village to raise a child. And the village always includes the grandmothers. Yeah. So what happens is there is an honoring of the female body, and particularly of the grandmothers. And that's, as the folks who showed up yesterday, why all those little feminine figurines that were found in the 10 to 50,000 year ago period are post-menopause grandmotherly figures. They are not exaggerated feminine characteristics and sexual beings. They're just post-menopausal women who have been well nourished. They haven't starved. And that's very good, because that means that someone who isn't actively harvesting every day is being cared for. We have cared for our grandmothers, and we honor them, and we miss them when they've gone, and so we make a little figurine to remind us of the love and the wisdom that they embodied. Now, I know there are some grandparents in the room, and I know that your relationship with your grandchildren is very different from your relationship with your children. Am I right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's part of why grandmothers are honored so in those other cultures and ancient ways. Because that unconditional acceptance and understanding that a grandparent brings without the fear of, are you going to be okay? Are you going to reflect me adequately in the culture that the parent might possibly bring? Is absolute. Yes. How nice. So then we extend the metaphor a little bit, and we realize that not only is there this being we call a woman in our language that is capable of bringing forth another being, but there is this planet that we live in, this region that we live on, this ecosystem that we are part of without that language. Oh, it's taking care of us too. It provides everything that we are or wish to ever experience. Everything that where bodies are, everything that we have is a gift of the earth. This is why we sing for the beauty of the earth on Mother's Day. The word matter, M-A-T-T-E-R, comes from the word mater, M-A-T-E-R. Material comes from mater, and mater is the Latin word for mother. All material beingness is the mother manifest for us. And so what we begin to get in the evolution of human thought is this idea that mother, matter, is the source of everything. Great. So now we have something beyond grandmother. We have the great mother, the embodiment of all that we could ever hope for in the way of matter and things, the source of all of our supply in terms of food, clothing, housing, all those things that we depend on to stay alive. In some images, humanity is constantly sucking at the breast of the mother. For that reason, everything that our body is, everything that we use to be in this world, in this planet, in this body, is the source, is sourced from the Great Mother. And the Great Mother takes on many forms. And in some forms, she has wings. I'm wearing the Isis today, the winged Isis today. Isis is the Great Mother, and she has wings. And the wings are because she is not just the matter, she is also more than that. She flies. She can be anywhere at any time. She is everywhere. She is the material embodiment of something that we call spirit. She is spirit embodied, the Great Mother. Oh, my. So when we practice Mother's Day, during the month of May, it is the month devoted to the Great Mother. And every religious tradition in Europe, every Christian, Judeo, others, all the traditions that evolved in Europe have the Great Mother in some form, including Islam. Fatima, which actually means the daughter of her mother's, let's see, the mother of her daughter, that's what it means. Fatima means the mother of her daughter. That's got to be the Great Mother. It's an Ouroboros eating itself, right? Giving birth to itself. Right? Fatima is part of the Islamic tradition. Shekinah was more spiritual than physical, is part of the Jewish tradition. Yes. Sophia is the Greek version of it, the embodiment of wisdom. And all those names of all those goddesses that are in the Roman and Greek pantheon, they're all the local Great Mother for the tribe or village or community that the Romans and Greeks adopted. So Diana and Persephone and Demeter. Demeter means Mother of God, by the way. All of those names are simply what were the local name for the Great Mother. And then the Romans figured out a way to squeeze them into their stories. And then the Catholics came along and they figured, as St. Augustine told them, adopt and adapt. Adopt whatever is local. Don't impose anything on them. Adopt what is local and adapt it to our story. And so the way they adapted them was to take the Roman pantheon and turn them into saints. Almost every one of the oldest saints in the European area were originally the local goddess. Anyone been to Chartres Cathedral? Oh, please, you must go. So the cathedral is built on a basilica that was built in 900 AD, or CE in modern terms. And that basilica was built on a cavern that was in place before Julius Caesar got there because he saw it. So that would be before AD, BC, some years before BC or AD. That period of zero, we call zero. That cavern had a statue in it and a spring. And the statue was to the Great Mother. And that statue was replaced by another statue that was still the Great Mother during the period of 900. It was Fulbertus then built the basilica and started doing his school. And then there was a great fire and that was destroyed as everything crushed on it. So now there is a new one, and this is Our Lady of Chartres. Almost anywhere you go where Our Lady is being honored, it's either the Magdalene or the local goddess turned into the Mother of God, the Theophilus, the Mother, the Theophila, Mother of God, who Catholics call Mary. Yeah. Same being, Mother of God, Queen of Heaven, Queen of the Seas, source of all, connection with the Divine Spirit. So when we have this thing that we call Mother's Day, and I got some things from my daughters too, it was lovely. When we celebrate Mother's Day, we're not just celebrating the woman who gave us birth, or the women along the way who supported us, or the men who provided the nurturing support we needed because there wasn't anyone else there and they were good at it. And I've known a few of those, and I know a number of you were in this room. So anyone who has ever mothered anyone for any reason, and that includes pets, and that includes baby lizards, and that includes all those things you've mothered for whatever reason, right? We are the embodiment of the Great Mother, and that is what we are honoring today. And the Great Mother has a terrible face, as well as a very loving and enjoying face. The Great Mother sometimes says, no, you can't. That's not okay. For our good, and for the good of all beings everywhere. Yes. And so we recognize today that somebody carried us in her womb and dealt with all of the issues and the joys and the dreams and the fears and the sometimes discomfort and the way we give birth in this country, probably pain, to bring us forth into this world. And we all have stories about that person, and some of them are great and some of them are awful, and that's fine. But the process and the presence and the willingness to let our bodies be born is what we are. And then all those who have provided any kind of mothering along the way, and all of them are simply representing and bringing forth in us our awareness of the feminine divine that is called the Great